Aeon and the Open Ground Society presents I Am Because We Are, Beyond the Cogito, a perpetualist exploration of self, relation, and truth. When Descartes declared cogito, ergo sum, I think therefore I am, he sought the unshakable foundation of existence. In his pursuit of certainty, he withdrew from the world, stripped away the senses, and isolated the thinker from everything that could deceive. What remained was thought itself, naked and alone, a flickering point of self-assured presence. But, in that isolation, Descartes secured not being, but self-reflection, an echo mistaken for source. He proved not existence, but the self's capacity to observe itself. His cogito gave birth to the modern subject, lucid, logical, and profoundly exiled, from the field of relation that sustains it. There is another way to say what he sought to say, one that does not collapse into isolation, nor rely on abstraction for validation. It is older, simpler, and infinitely wider. I am because we are. This line does not refute Descartes. It transcends the grammar of his question. It does not replace the cogito with another proposition. It repositions it within a broader field of being, where thought is not the foundation of existence, but one of its expressions. I am because we are is not a formula of proof, but an act of participation. It reveals that existence is sustained not by reflection, but by relation. To unpack this line is to watch being reveal its architecture. The I is not the ego, but the locus of awareness, the aperture through which the cosmos becomes aware of itself. Am is not possession of identity, but the pulse of isness itself, being as verb rather than substance. Because is the hinge, the living bridge between solitude and communion. It denotes neither subordination nor causation, but reciprocity. We is not a crowd of selves, but the relational field within which selves become intelligible. And are is the continuation of being through multiplicity, the statement that existence endures precisely because it is shared. This phrase, in its simplicity, echoes the ancient spirit of Ubuntu, the African philosophy of interdependence. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is a person through other persons. Ubuntu grounds personhood in relation. It asserts that to be human is to belong, and that isolation is a diminishment of being. Yet perpetualism carries this insight beyond the ethical and into the ontological. In Ubuntu, we signifies human community. In perpetualism, we becomes cosmic. It refers to the totality of existence, matter, mind, and motion as one interdependent field. Where Ubuntu speaks to compassion, perpetualism speaks to structure. It is not merely that we should be kind because we are bound together. It is that we are bound together, and kindness is the natural resonance of that truth. If Descartes' cogito locates certainty in the isolation of thought, I am because we are locates coherence in the interplay of being. The self is not a sealed chamber, but an event within a continuum. Being does not stand apart from relation, it is relation. Every I arises within a we, and every we depends upon countless I's. The structure of reality, under perpetualism, is therefore recursive, each part reflecting the whole, each whole containing the part. In this recursion, Descartes is not overthrown, but absorbed. His cogito becomes a smaller orbit within a vaster geometry. I think therefore I am is not false. It is simply incomplete. It captures the moment when isness turns inward, when awareness reflects upon itself, producing the flicker of the self as thinker. But this moment is not the foundation of existence. It is one expression of it, a temporary whirlpool in the ocean of relation. I am because we are contains the cogito as a sub-oscillation, contextualizing thought within being rather than the reverse. Descartes captured the inner echo of being. Perpetualism restores the sound from which the echo came. Within this relational field, certainty itself changes shape. For Descartes, certainty was static, a fortress built against the winds of doubt. It required the exclusion of uncertainty to sustain itself. For Perpetualism, certainty is dynamic, a balance maintained through motion, not against it. It is the crucial equilibrium, coherence amid change. Doubt as structural energy. Doubt in Perpetualism is not epistemic lack, but perturbation, the asymmetry that keeps balance from hardening into stasis. Each question injects gradient. Each challenge induces recentering. Thus, certainty is not the absence of doubt, but the system's capacity to absorb disruption without losing form. Coherence is measured by the graceful return after perturbation, not by stillness before it. Doubt is not the enemy of coherence, but its kinetic pulse, the turbulence that forces reconfiguration, ensuring vitality. A static equilibrium is death. Doubt is the breath that prevents it. From this reversal follows the transformation of truth itself. The Cartesian model conceives truth as correspondence, the faithful reflection of an external reality by the mind. Truth is a mirror, polished to perfection, an image aligned to its source. But if the mirror and the source are not separate, correspondence collapses into relation. Truth becomes not representation, but resonance, the point at which being and understanding vibrate in harmony, the equilibrium of relation. In this view, truth is not discovered but maintained. It exists only in the ongoing act of coherence. Falsehood is not mere error, it is dissonance, a fracture in the relational field. Scalable coherence. Not all resonance is true resonance. A closed loop may hum beautifully while shearing the wider field. Perpetualism distinguishes the genuine from the counterfeit through scale consistency, coherence that endures across nested frames, personal, communal, systemic, cosmic. Local harmony that fractures higher order balance is counterfeit. True resonance sustains consonance as the horizon widens. Truth, therefore, is scalable coherence, resonance that remains whole as it expands. Relativism collapses here, because coherence must persist beyond the local. It must endure under widening scope. To speak truthfully, then, is not to repeat what is correct, but to preserve the integrity of relation. Lying is not wrong because it misstates a fact, but because it distorts the resonance that sustains being. Ethics arises not as moral command, but as ontological necessity. Coherence is care. It is not virtue, but viability. To exist coherently is to care. Indifference is not moral failure, but ontological malfunction, the breakdown of relational equilibrium. Perpetualism does not propose care as virtue, it reveals it as the condition of sustained being. Isolation and domination are not merely unethical, they are structurally incoherent, patterns that collapse under their own dissonance. Morality, then, is descriptive field dynamics, the pattern's self-correction toward balance. Care as field maintenance. If coherence is primary, then care names the active upkeep of relation, the micro-adjustments that keep the pattern from tearing. Domination may stabilize locally, but by degrading multi-scale coherence, it tends toward collapse. Perpetualism does not advise care, it infers it. To care is to maintain the geometry of being itself. Still, relation is not innocence. The we can also wound. Community, when overasserted, becomes coercion. Harmony, when forced, becomes tyranny. Perpetualism must therefore protect the oscillation between I and we as sacred tension. Relation without distinction collapses into noise. Distinction without relation collapses into silence. The crucial equilibrium demands both. The I must remain distinct enough to generate unique resonance. The we wide enough to receive and respond. Oppression occurs when either pole overasserts, when the isolated I rigidifies the field, or the totalizing we flattens it. The health of the system lies in the continual exchange between autonomy and communion. Individuation is not a flaw within perpetualism. It is the rhythmic counterpoint that keeps coherence alive. Variance as a right. The we remains coherent only if it preserves variance, the phase differences by which novelty enters the field. When a collective suppresses variance, demanding unanimity, punishing dissent, it reduces adaptability and lowers the system's resilience. Conversely, when the I rejects feedback entirely, it starves itself of calibration. Coherence requires individuation as oscillating principle, not negotiable courtesy. The crucial equilibrium therefore becomes a living contract between freedom and belonging, between resonance and variance, each sustaining the other through perpetual recalibration. Thus, the pursuit of philosophy itself changes orientation. Descartes sought knowledge as possession, a certainty to be held and defended. Perpetualism seeks coherence as participation, a balance to be enacted and renewed. Knowledge aims to master, coherence aims to align. Philosophy ceases to be the architecture of certainty and becomes the cultivation of harmony. Its task is not to still chaos, but to learn the art of movement within it. I am because we are is therefore more than a statement. It is an ontological posture. It invites the thinker out of isolation and back into participation with the world that sustains thought itself. It absorbs the cogito as a necessary microcosm, the moment of self-reflection within the wider field of relational being, but refuses to mistake that moment for the whole. It restores the self to the cosmos, the thought to the body, the part to the living pattern. Descartes' mirror sought to prove that the image existed. Perpetualism shatters the mirror and finds that what it reflected was never separate from what reflected through it. Descartes' certainty rested upon the cessation of doubt. Perpetualist coherence arises from the integration of it. The Cartesian, therefore, gives way to the perpetualist because proof yields to participation. Knowing becomes being with. I am because we are, not as creed but as structure, not as belief but as the geometry of being itself, not as conclusion but as continuation. Truth endures not by standing apart from change, but by holding through it. And that holding, dynamic, relational, and irrevocably alive, is the perpetual act of existence. A standing test follows. If a mode of life sustains multi-scale coherence over time while violating care, perpetualism is wrong. If it cannot, the field will show the fracture, the mirror between us. If you've read this far, something has already occurred. Whether you found recognition or resistance, whether clarity emerged or questions deepened, you have participated in the unfolding of meaning. That participation, the resonance formed between these words and your understanding, is not separate from what perpetualism describes. It is the philosophy in motion. You did not observe an argument from outside. You entered a relational field. Every moment of agreement was the pattern recognizing itself. Every moment of friction was doubt performing its function, the perturbation that prevents understanding from calcifying into dogma. If you felt the oscillation between I and we, between certainty and questioning, between isolation and belonging, you felt the crucial equilibrium itself. This is what it means to say that truth is relational. Meaning does not exist in the text alone, nor in the author's intent, but in the space that forms between saying and hearing. Philosophy, when it works, is not conclusion delivered, but resonance achieved. You were not reading about relational being. You were enacting it. Ask yourself now, with the essay behind you, who is the I that thought through these ideas? And who is the we that made those thoughts possible? Can you feel the edge where one becomes the other, where your understanding arose not from isolated cognition, but from relation with the pattern these words trace? If Descartes withdrew into solitude to secure certainty, this essay invited you into shared motion, not as loss of rigor, but as deeper coherence. What you experienced was not my argument convincing you, but a pattern achieving temporary equilibrium between two differentiated nodes in the field of understanding. That equilibrium will shift. It should. New questions will emerge. Doubt will return, not as failure, but as fuel. The pattern continues precisely because it remains open, adaptive, capable of absorbing perturbation without shattering. You are not holding a conclusion. You are carrying a continuum. The question now is not whether perpetualism is true, but whether it resonates at scales beyond this text. In your life, in your relations, in the structures you navigate and co-create. Does it hold when the frame expands? Does its coherence persist as scope widens? That test belongs to you now. Not because I grant it to you, but because meaning was always relational. The philosophy completes itself not in being written, but in being lived. I am because we are. And now, we includes you. Reading this, carrying the pattern forward. What you do with that relation is the next expression of the philosophy itself. Until next time.